Good evening and welcome to Caffe Lena. Thanks for watching this live stream production from Saratoga Springs, New York. These live streams are made possible by the generous support of the Sarah B. Folk Charitable Fund and by our community of subscribers. Special thanks to our Virtuoso level subscribers and lifetime Caffe Lena members. By buying a ticket for this performance, you're supporting independent music and the mission of our historic nonprofit venue. Enjoy your front row seats for this show, live from Caffe Lena.
I'm really just in this for the money I'm getting tonight, which is a lot more than I normally make on a Saturday. It's just on. I had to put it on Sarah's mic.
Oh my goodness! So this is something that I never thought we would be able to make happen.
I can't believe it.
It might have been Joanne's first day on the job here, and we were all hanging out in the office, and she was seeing some of Joe's photos, and she said, "Oh, you should do a show of Joe's photos." And I know that Joe doesn't want to ever get on stage, so I hadn't suggested it. And Joe immediately said, "Oh, nobody would want to come see that." So one thing I know about everybody in the house is that you plan early, because we sold this show out a long time ago, and there are a lot of people who are watching online right now because actually everybody wants to see these photos and everybody wants to celebrate Joe. And I have to say that, and I think we're both feeling this way, this sort of feels like maybe one of the most important things we've ever done here. So thank you. Along those lines, the poet laureate of Saratoga Springs sent a poem for this occasion. His name is Joe Bruchac. I think probably a lot of you know him. And so I will start with Joe's poem. The Legend of Joe Deuel.
I did not give him money for this.
Before Lena Spencer came to Saratoga, old-timers say Joe Deuel was here, sitting on a log by the village brook, a pinhole camera in one hand and a microphone in the other. Some say he slept for 40 years, and when he woke, in front of him, a brand new building had risen there. He made his way up a steep set of stairs, trying not to trip on his 10-foot-long beard, and said to Lena, "Need an engineer?" Then, whether out of kindness or dread, "You're hired, kid," is what she said. It turned out to be a sound investment. After all these years, Joe Deuel's still here. So the legend goes, but the truth itself is just about as hard to believe. As the weekends and the years rolled by, Joe Deuel stayed and did not leave. And here he is in front of you to swear every word I just wrote is true. Joe, old friend, the truth is we all love you. So, Joe and I have been practicing for this, and we know exactly what we're going to do. I kept saying to Joe, "Do you have a running order for the photo?" He's like, "I'm still working on it. I'm thinking I might change it." Like, "What do you want me to do, Joel?" You just talk. Okay, so
I'm just going to sit here and let her talk about my photos.
Joe, let's first of all just make sure that everybody in the room knows some basic biographical details here. When did you first come to Saratoga?
5 generations ago.
Yeah, and your dad was a photographer and had a shop
Briefly
nearby.
in the 50s, up the street where the skylight was.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had bought that studio, and then he started mass producing kids, so he got into the bowling alley business.
And when did you first come into this building? Did your dad send you here?
Oh, actually, in the building. Yeah, I know what you're getting at. It was Marvin Weiss had a bookie store downstairs where the woodwind shop was, and the windows were painted white. And my father knew everyone. I had to bring something from Dad's store down there, a magazine or something, and came down and walked in. And you walk in the door, you open it up, and everyone's like staring at you. And there's a rack of newspapers from a month ago, and there's a rack of candy with about ½ inch of dust on them, and a few guys sitting in the back staring at you. So yeah, it was kind of interesting.
That's a good errand for a child.
Yeah, well, that was typical of Dad. Yeah.
So let's swing in and look at some photos.
Okay, I'm sorry to disparage Joe Bruchac too, but the really grim reality was I came here to volunteer dishwashing one night, and Lena demoted me to doing sound. She asked if I could help turn on a microphone for Peppino D'Agostino, the Italian guitar wizard, and that was about it. And then, once you get, Lena stuck me with sound for the next 2 years, even though I had never done it before, never wanted to do it. Still don't. But it's been 38 years now, so something about it. But. Oh my goodness. So this thing that's been sitting up there for about 5 hours now is just that Sarah had me do a collage for the 50th anniversary. That was like a printout that she handed out. Those are just a bunch of my photos. Going to start right back at the beginning. This was a guy named Harold Griffiths who dragged me up here one night. He wanted some promo photos, and so I just sat there and shot a few photos. This is actually with my 4x5 speed graphic film camera. But that's the oldest photo I know of that I took here. I was probably about 18 at the time. Wow. It looks like a promo photo. But yeah, try getting that name near past spell checkers. Harold. Yeah. Even at the time, it wound up getting published in a few newspapers over the years. It was always Harold. You just couldn't write enough notes on it to explain. No, you idiot, it's Harold. That's one of the first bands I saw here, the Balfour Brothers. They were like the premier Cajun band. They're the ones who kind of brought Cajun music into the folk festivals and kind of helped make it popular. And it was these really serious, dour-looking guys with their pants hiked way up and just stern expressions playing the liveliest, funnest music you've ever seen. So everything here was just always been kind of forgettable, and that's the one that's very unforgettable. That's another one. That's Dewey and Will Balfa. Kind of look big heroes in Louisiana. Yeah. Now this is kind of interesting. Up on Phila Street, right under where my dad's studio had been, there was a sub shop in the early 70s. And the guy, Rich, who's on the left there, was a total folk groupie. And he's like, Lena, why don't you send your performers down? And if I send someone good down, I'll buy them lunch. And remarkably, Arlo showed up. Lena sent Arlo Guthrie down there. And he obviously is really thrilled to be getting his picture taken. And that was also with my dad had a store around the corner at that point, and so I was there working. I had to lock the store up, and I went running down, which ironically, the only camera I had was my 4x5 speed graphic. So this 18-year-old kid with a press camera goes rolling up and takes 2 shots. It's like... And so that's the one everyone's published. That's the only other shot, which kind of cracks me up, because they're all both staring at Arlo's foot. He's standing on his dog's leash. So I don't know what to say. And then, it really bizarrely, I still, we didn't think it was him at the time, but a couple months later, Lena sent Bob Dylan down to the sub shop. And we didn't, at the time, we didn't even think it was him because we were used to that baby-faced Dylan from the albums, and I kind of forgot about the negatives. I found them years later, and it's like, oh man. So that was kind of fun. But yeah, no 4x5 camera. I had to borrow a camera that didn't really work very well. So that's Andy Cohen, who was just here a few weeks ago. Yeah, this is also one of the early shows I ever saw. That guitar was like a harp guitar. Someone had lent it to him for decades, and he called it the Twangolium. And so he was Andy Cohen, the Twangolium King. So
that sounds like something I would book.
Yeah, you have many times. Oh, there's stalwart performers way back then, Mary McCaslin and Jim Ringer. They were always a great act. And except there was one day they were menaced by a werewolf. I don't know if any of you out there knew Michael Noonan, local photographer. He had this great red hair, and he used to grow it in his beard, grow it feet long, and then you'd see him one day, and he was totally shorn. And then he'd grow his hair out again, and then look like a billiard ball. And then one day he showed up in a Wolfman costume he made from his hair. And Jim Ringer was like, bad doggy, down boy. And if I had to name a favorite performer here, it arguably could be Dave Van Ronk, because he just always blew my mind. He was such a powerhouse. And any story you've heard about him was probably true or should have been, But he's one of those people I would never miss here, because he was just powerful.
Joe,
performer.
Can I ask you? I think you've told me that he was going to do an album of duets.
Oh, that story, that's crazy. Lena kind of fancied herself a singer, and he did an album of duets with different people. And one day he was here early, came here really early, and he actually came over and sat and helped me fold napkins that we used to do in the old days. And I said, hey, sure, you want to fold napkins? Like, I don't know. Sure. I sat down, and he was folding napkins with me. And then he was sitting at the back by the stairs there, and Lena kind of walked over and said, Dave, I hear you're doing an album of duets. And I was just wondering, people tell me I have a lovely voice. Dave doesn't look up from his newspaper. He's like, it's already in the can, Lena. So he dodged a bullet there. He was a character. And that's Dave. He was a very generous person, actually, with helping musicians out. That's Nathaniel Ward. I don't know if George Ward was here tonight. He was. I saw his name on the list at one point.
Yeah,
he goes back here to day one, and that's his son Nathaniel, who's now an excellent guitarist. And Dave just helped him out, taught him some blues stuff.
That's the back room. That would have been right over where Ian is at the soundboard, right?
Yeah, pretty much. There was a couch there that Lena lived on, so she lived in the room that was right over there. She used to have apartments, but near the end, it was folk music was kind of a cyclical thing. Sometimes it's popular, and sometimes it's the opposite of that. So, it's a whole different layout from the old days. That's one of my favorite people ever. Paul Jeremiah. I saw him. He's one of those people I would catch more than once a year. Lena used to get people she liked constantly. Van Ronk was here every few months. You couldn't miss the guy. But Paul could just rip through this blues stuff, and he wrote these great songs in country blues style. And he's alive, but he had a bad stroke a few years ago, so sad to see him go. Huxtable, Christensen, and Hood. You probably know those names here. Yeah, longtime Caffe Lena people. It's not a great photo. That's Sparky Rucker. I wanted to get one of Sparky, and he was one of my favorites. That guy standing on the left there is Tom Winslow, who played here many, many times. His daughter, Thomasina, who we lost a couple years ago. Yeah, she was wonderful. But I had to get them in. They're like Caffe Lena royalty. And that's my friend Eric Taub, who we lost last year. He's an old friend, and he was in here sketching. That's in the same area where Ian is over there by the sound booth, sketching one of Bessie Jones's dancers. And it was a whole different world in this, way back then. It was so different. Now this picture just kind of takes you back to a certain time and place. It's Dr. California's Golden State Remedy. And they were kind of a comedy, vaudeville, musical act. I remember they were just pretty wild. They were juggling in here. And you don't see things like that anymore. Oh, Don McLean. I'm sure you've heard of him. But he was here. He was a frequent performer here before he hit it big, and then after American Pie, he kept coming and did little shows for Lena just to help her out. Didn't he invite her to the Academy Awards, the Grammys or something? Yeah. So that was cool. So this is one of those shows. I think it was right after American Pie, but I don't really remember. It's a little while ago.
We have a recording from this one, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was. We have a recording of American Pie before it was No, we thought it was before it was recorded, and then sure enough, doesn't the audience join in on the chorus?
Yeah,
and
right.
We're like, okay, I guess they've heard it before.
Those psychic audiences, know how it's going to go. That's the folk music crowd. They know the lyrics even when the song hasn't been written yet. And that's actually the first person I saw here was Utah Phillips, and boy, I can't think of a bigger mentor or teacher. There was like this thing when I started coming to the cafe that there were so many people like Michael Cooney or Paul Jeremiah or Van Ronk, whatever genre they were in, they'd play a lot of old music, but they wouldn't just play it, they would really go into detail to make sure you knew where it came from and who did it, and like Michael Cooney would just kind of teach you the whole folk process of how a song evolves over decades, and popular song could have been a slave song way back, a long time ago. But Phillips was one of those unforgettable people. And some friends of mine just happened to be walking. I was walking down Philo Street because I lived on Caroline. I was a teenager in high school and ran into a couple friends. And, Joe, we're going up to see Lena. And so they dragged me up, and I'd always wondered about that mysterious blank door down there. It was kind of this, thing you're afraid to go into because you don't know what's on the other side. And
a lot of people still feel that way.
Yeah, I know. I feel that way still every day when I come to work. So that never goes away. But yeah, they just dragged me up, and Utah Phillips he was recording for that first Philo album. So there are 2 tracks from that weekend that were recorded here, the Cannonball Blues and Moose Turd Pie, which you will never forget either of those. He was just an unforgettable character. So yeah, he was the first, and he's sorely missed. He was quite a big personality and a teacher. That's the last time he played here in 2007. That's not too long before he died, I think. Yeah. He was a piece of something else that you don't see anymore. He was amazing. And that's Jean Redpath. She was a big deal folkie, still is. And didn't Garrison Keillor almost come to a memorial thing for her once? That was in the works, but they shifted their plans. Probably
Scottish.
went to the Ryman instead or something.
Yeah.
There's Michael Cooney. He was just one of those people you could always go see. It was interesting. He was here the night Lena fell down the stairs, too, by the way, so I'll never forget that. So, he was a great teacher. Yes, Michael with Lena. She joined him this one day on stage. It's a little bit later on in the 80s, but you could tell it was just a great moment. There's Michael the last time he played here. Mm-hmm. It was a while ago now. Yeah, back in the old cafe. He's still alive, I guess, retired though. He knew about 3/4 of hundreds or thousands of songs. He never quite got through a whole one. But he was a great musician, and he was just funny. Yeah.
He had a big sheet with all of his songs on it, and it was just fine print, hundreds of songs, and he would check off which ones he did, and he would put the date and the venue on it so that he would never do the same show twice when he came. Yeah, he'd get a different show every time.
Yeah, he was a pleasure to see. Well, that conjures up a different era. It was Will Spires and Jane Voss. They were around. Jane was around here. She was on those early Utah Phillips recordings and the couple Philo ones. Oh, David Amram, back when he looked like he was like a young Leonard Bernstein. And our good friend Tony Markellis. There's Jay Unger in the middle there. And if I have the guitarist name, and I really can't think of it and can't really see them anyway, so... And there's Amram the last time he was here in 2019. He's in his 90s and still going strong. He's amazing.
He's unbelievable. You see him at music conferences, and he's up at 3 a.m. jamming with people in the hallways well into his 90s. He's just the most energetic guy God ever made.
Except there was one show that I was here waiting to do sound for him when Lena was still here. And I don't know what happened, but he somehow didn't do the show, but he sent his wife to do the show for him. And if I could bottle an extract of the look on Lena's face, I would have been immune from traffic jams forever, just a sprinkle of that, and they would have. Yeah, that was a priceless look.
He met her here.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah.
Her family ran Ecobelli's restaurant in Ballston Spa. It was like a lot of people of a certain age know that place. And
Laura Lee.
Laura Lee. We
Yeah.
used to go there for pizzas when I was young. Yeah, so he's a trip. Oh, that's David Bromberg, of course. That was the first time I saw him. That's with Jay Unger, who was ubiquitous around here in those days, and Billy Novick, great player. Yeah, and there's David. The last time he was here was 2018, so it was just right after the renovation. We didn't have the good drape or the good lights or anything yet, so but he was great. He kind of wound up doing the show. I don't think he was really wanted to do it, but somehow he did it for us.
Yeah, he did. He consented to do it, and then ended up having a really nice time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish I'm sorry he never didn't come back much after. He was around here a lot.
He's not playing now.
Yeah, he was getting trigger finger and he had some issues. And he plays a lot of notes when he plays. And I don't know if Gordon Boyd was here tonight, but Gordon was running for office. He's a regular. He goes way back here at the cafe. And he was running for office in 73, so he hired this farm wagon with bunting, and they had this old-time bandwagon going up and down Broadway, and then in Congress Park, and that's young Frank Orsini on the left, who plays here a lot still. Alan Stoll and Kurt Anderson, they were here a lot in those days. And Dean Lewis, I didn't know that well. And of course, that's Utah Phillips off on the side there. He lived in town for quite a while. There's Utah and Frank Orsini. That was a fun thing. Just Fred Holstein, just a shot I kind of like. He owned a folk club, I think, near Chicago. This I just found in my negatives. I've been making a lot of digital contact sheets from my negatives and didn't really spot that one. It's Van Ronk sitting over at the executive. It looks like Tony Markellis. And just it's not in focus or sharp or anything, but neither am I. So
Talk a little bit about the executive.
Oh yeah, that was the premier bar when I think that's probably the first bar I ever had a drink in against my will when I was 16 or something. I ran into some friend of mine's older brother, and they dragged us in there. It was a restaurant, and this couple at the time, Larry and Gail Mahar owned it, and the walls were, a lot of you would remember, the walls were covered with Caffe Lena promo photos of performers, and you could buy a sandwich named a Van Ronk, which you would think would be really chewy and tough. but you know,
And it's where Peabody's is now, or what do you call it?
It's
The
where the
Nashville?
Nashville
Yeah,
place was.
yeah.
It's unfortunately they ripped the door fronts off there, and then the Weiss family owned it for quite a while. It was still a nice place, but
Did people ever, like performers, go down there during intermission?
no, never. That was my least favorite Lena job ever was, Joe, could you go find Dave Van Ronk? Could you go find Paul Jeremiah? You know, because they would take a break and like the audience is sitting there like an hour and a half, you know. Oh, Dave, Lena would like you to come back and do the second set. Okay. The only thing worse was when I used to do the shopping for the weekends. I was Lena's manager at the time, and I used to keep the kitchen stocked, and I'd go out and buy the groceries. And she's like, oh, Joe, could you get me a pair of queen-size pantyhose? I was just like shrinking like a spider on a hot plate, you know, just like, I could not write a book, but maybe a healthy pamphlet about what I've gone through here. So. Tom Paxton, he was just here on his farewell tour.
Yeah.
Very likable, engaging performer. His daughter went to Skidmore for a while, so he would do gigs here
I
to
didn't know that.
have a chance to get paid to visit his daughter. So, yeah, I remember that show. I did sound for it in '88, and he had Pat Donahue opening, the guitarist. A lot of you know from the Drury Home Companion. Yeah, that was fun. We had John Hartford here a couple times. That's his son Jamie playing with him, and that's John's shadow he brought along. And they were like the total Nashville rig. They'd pull in and they'd drive all night and pull into a gig in their bus. And John was he was pleasant, but he was quiet off to the side and kind of set it up for him. And he did the great show. He had a little tray of sand he danced in all night long that had a couple microphones on it. And he was into Lena. He really enjoyed it. And actually, this next one's one of my favorite photos from here. It's just John Hartford sitting there with Lena and Sasha. It was Lena's last cat standing. There were always pets here, so there were a lot of people who didn't come here because they were very allergic or the smoke in those days hanging down from. It was like flying into San Francisco, and you could tell there was a lamp up there, but it just had this weird bile green glow to it or something. But that was fun. He came back once after Lena died. And there's a picture of Lena with Wendy. She used to be a waitress here. But this is on their way to Ironweed. And I have to talk about this just for a second, because when they filmed Ironweed, they filmed it, it was an Albany author, Kennedy, and they filmed a lot of it in Albany. And they hired a lot of extras from the area, so they hit the cafe pretty hard on people for extras. You could see Dick Cavanaugh sitting in a soup kitchen temperance scene. And Wendy was in it. There's a scene where Jack Nicholson and Tom Waits are waiting for a streetcar at the cemetery. The streetcar comes, and Nicholson holds the door open, and Wendy and her daughter are dressed up beyond recognition in period gear, and they walk on ahead of Jack Nicholson and Tom Waits, which is so cool.
That's great.
But Lena, who's that beyond that wall where the kitchen and office and bath and all that stuff over there is, used to be a little black box picture theater. You'll see pictures of it in a little while. But Lena got this job as an extra, and this just fills my heart because Lena loved acting. She never really cared for folk music. They bought the place. They started the place because folk music was booming. They thought they would make enough money in 2 years to move to Europe. And she obviously grew into the job just the same way Sarah did, who didn't really know the music. It's something you can't, I'm still here. There's something about this place. I don't know, it's like music heroin or something. But Lena is there in a scene at the Miss Albany Diner, with Meryl Streep. So, arguably the best actress of that generation, or at least one of the fine ones. And there's Lena. She's sitting at the diner. She says one line that's almost intelligible. She's sitting at the counter. Meryl Streep's sitting at a booth, and Meryl Streep's character is dying of stomach cancer. So she'd ordered toast, and she looked at it, and pushes it away, and she said, "Miss, would you like this?" And it's Lena sitting at the counter. She turns around, and she goes like,
No teeth. No teeth.
Oh, no, I don't know. I have no idea. Yeah, maybe she didn't have the teeth.
Yeah, she didn't have her teeth in.
Yeah, there was one story Sarah wanted me to try to remember. Do you know Scott McKenzie? If you go to San Francisco, wear some pretty flowers in your hair. Great, beautiful voice. And he played here with the new, like a revised Mamas and the Papas. John Phillips, yeah. John Phillips lived up in Lake George for a while, and they had been listed Tony Markellis and Peter Davis as Papas, I guess. But there's a collected story from Scott McKenzie where they all played at this big benefit to get Lena some new teeth. And he didn't see her for months, and then he saw her, and he like, "Oh, hey, Lena," and Lena comes up to him like, and he's like, "Oh, how are things going? Are everything okay?" And she's like, and Philip Mackenzie was thinking, "Oh man, I wonder if she's had a small stroke or something." And she's like, "My teeth, Scott, my teeth. I got the new teeth." Too funny. But yeah, I gave those two a ride down to the Ironweed premiere. That's long before cell phones, so I had to drive all the way back here and wait for a phone call. So I had no idea when it was going to end. And that's our old friend Al McKinney. That's a picture in his apartment. That's his record collection out there. He was a true character. That's before he had a lot of addiction problems. He was a skinny guy who was drinking and doing all sorts of stuff. And then he stopped chain smoking, he stopped drinking, he stopped doing all the other stuff. And he gained a tremendous amount of weight because food was all he had left. But he was a total character, a music lover. That's in his apartment. He always had walls covered with calendar photos. And had to get Al in here. He's some of his ashes in here someplace.
Yeah.
Yeah. You didn't hear that. This isn't a good photo, but Towns played here a bunch of times, and he was great. I did sound for him the last time he played here, and the time before, I think Lena had my girlfriend at the time, and I gave him a ride to Albany, which was very surreal because she was driving, I was in the back, he was in the back, and I was chatting. And he was like such a soft-spoken guy. He was like talking to me a mile a minute, and I'd be like, yes. Yeah, I could barely hear what he was saying, but I'm sure it was fascinating because he was Towns. And that's one of my favorites, Chris Smither. He goes way back to the early days of the folk mayhem in the 60s, and just an articulate, great mind. I love people like that who can just a literary force, and he could pick up a storm too. He still plays here. Is he coming?
He's coming this spring.
Yeah. He's just not to miss. His voice gets quieter every year, but he still sounds great. And don't miss him. And once I was talking with Chris, and I talked about, somehow we were talking about photography, because he told me he had a speed graphic camera like the one I had. So I'm sure he didn't remember that conversation, but next time he came, I brought that camera, and I took his picture in the little theater that was over there. So I'm glad I have that shot. He's always still one of my favorites. And that's Rosalie. She was so integral to this place. I got a neat message from her daughter today. She was wishing me well on the show. We're Facebook friends. And she and her 5 kids moved in with Lena on and off. They were there a lot. And There's a big part of the story of this place, all the Sorrel kids around town. And she's the one who brought Utah Phillips here. Everyone thought he was a figment of her imagination because she used to talk about him. But then she brought him here, and he's launched his career here. If you listen to his box set, in the first track, he talks about him. And then I had to leave Utah kind of in a hurry, and I fetched up in Saratoga Springs at Caffe Lena.
Yep.
So this career goes way back to then. Oh, it's Greg Brown. That's right, when Lena was still alive. He did 2 nights, and there were 2 of the best shows I've ever seen here. They were so good. And he was an odd guy. I'd never really talked with him. He was he showed up at showtime. And Lena was asking me to find this open mic performer who lived in Schenectady to try to get there. So no one's going to wait 45 minutes for an open mic guy to show up, and they're waiting for Greg Brown. But I said, let me go look outside. And I went outside, and there he was unloading his guitar. I asked him what he needed. I said, guitar mic, vocal mic. And I said, is it okay if we record? Yep. And that was it. That was the entire engagement I had with him, the whole 2 shows.
That's how I want to return to those days of contracting in that fashion.
Yeah, just a simple grunt instead of all the paperwork. You want to play here on the 12th for like 70%? Oh, and that's this. I don't have many shots from the theater, unfortunately. I did some production shots for a couple plays, but this was a Albany group, the Burundi Dancers, Amoye, if I'm saying that right, Cooper. They did a wonderful show here. I think Patrick Donovan's in the room here tonight. He came over and said hi. He was involved in the theater pretty heavily back then, and he did one production he had me do some photos of, so I want to show 3 of those. There was a Athol Fugard play, The Blood Knot, and it was a wonderful little adaptation. That's Patrick. They're fantasizing about driving somewhere in these 3 shots, and it's a South African play, and so that's all the theater shots I have for today, but thanks, Patrick. It's Dan Hicks and the Acoustic Warriors. Dan Hicks, unfortunately, was booked here with the Hot Licks, and during that time between the booking and the show, he fell ill and wound up dying, but I was excited to have them coming here. It would have been a blast. Mm-hmm. He was great. Oh, this is at Lena's Memorial Weekend. This is one of my other favorite Caffe Lena shots. There was a kind of a documentary about Lena's. It was filmed by a guy from England who grew up in Boston Spa, Stephen Trombley, I think his name. Yeah, Trombley, and they wanted to do this whole documentary in the course of the Memorial Weekend, so they flew a bunch of performers here. So the town, if like a bomb had gone off here, we would have lost 3/4 of the folk world, because you'd be like standing on the street and Bromberg would walk by, and then Loudon Wainwright would walk by, and Al McKenney called me up at home and said, Joe, you got to come down to the executive, because I'm sitting here with Dave Van Ronk and Paul Jeremiah and Roy Bookbinder and Rosalie Sorrells and Don and Victoria Armstrong and Kate and Anna McGarrigle. It's just like crazy. Those people were all in town for the memorial. So they're all sitting there. I went in with a friend of mine who ordered a shot of bourbon and a glass of water, and we went over and I got a beer. We went over and sat at the table next to Rosalie. Rosalie looked around and she noticed the bourbon and the water. She picked up my friend's bourbon, pours it into her water, and just drinks it. My friend's like, So these people are all like passing a guitar around, and then like some young Skidmore kid goes over and puts $5 in the jukebox. And they just like talk about total killjoy, No one would ever know the caliber of the people sitting at that table. So we kind of wandered over to the Parting Glass where they were trying to close, and Bob Cohan, the very gracious owner and music lover, saw the crowd coming in. I was lucky he didn't wet his pants because he knew all of them. And, we'll keep the kitchen open for a minute. So, and there's this one, I kind of love this shot, but this is probably my most published photo. It was in a Dave Van Ronk Smithsonian booklet in his album, the last recording he ever made. But he went over and plucked Utah Phillips' clown nose off and stuck it on and, just for a second, belted a line of the Sacred Gin Mill, that song, Last Call or whatever it was. I can't remember, but that was unforgettable. He and his wife loved that photo. They had a copy. It looks like maybe a third-rate Pavarotti in a Pagliacci play or something. I don't know. That's not a good shot, but Vassar Clements played here twice one day, and that was one of the top 5 shows I've ever seen here. They were edgy, and they were brilliant, and just the trio. They had to work a lot harder than his usual, 7-piece band, so you could tell he was sweating it out, but they worked hard, and it was a tremendous show. There's just a few volunteers, Michael and Susie Burns, who were a couple then, Al and Eric McCarthy. They were a lot of I'm trying to get a few shots of some of the people who really are part of the place as much as anyone, the performers. That's Lena. I don't remember what that was about, but she just read something one day in front of an audience. A few people showed up, but just kind of, I like the atmosphere of that. This is Lena, was it the Historical Society? Or someone gave her a Lifetime Achievement Award.
I think it was, the Art Center, Saratoga Arts, that
Center.
whole thing,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, Di Sarno. That's Di Sarno. But so she got this little Lifetime Achievement Award, and it was fun. They had a reception over at the drink hall. I don't seem like I have that many pictures of Lena where she's smiling and, just having a good day. But I wanted to put those in there. And this is right around the time Lena died. I have a few shots of the old kitchen, which is right over there. You people are sitting right in the middle of that. I'm just sick enough. I want to draw a chalk line on the floor where the walls used to be, like a crime scene. It's like this was the bathrooms. And, because the kitchen and bathrooms were in the middle of the space. So it was a big L-shaped room. I know a lot of you remember that. But this is just, I wanted to get a picture of the old kitchen because it was, it's far from a modern marvel of kitchen science. But it was, I miss the old cafe. It's very bittersweet. Saratoga's not a funky place anymore like it used to be. Everything's pretty gleaming and expensive. And that is Lena's grave. I found that a few years ago. We go to Cape Cod a lot, and Milford, Mass. is right on, is it 495, the main route to the Cape? So we stopped there, and I found where it was online. We went up. You can kind of see her. I don't know if you can see it. It's kind of. I don't think my thing's on anymore. Hold on. Right, kind of written into the bevel there. They just kind of tacked it onto the family gravestone. That's a film photo. I just kind of liked it, so I wanted to do that one. And this picture is after Lena's memorial service that whole weekend. 4 people I would never miss when they came here. Jeremiah, Utah, Van Ronk, and Roy Bookbinder. Just like a gift of people you could go see. I'm so glad I found this place when I was young and impressionable and could afford to get in. That's at Lena's memorial. I think a lot of you know Camille West. And her husband, Scott, was like the mastermind of the folkathons we did. And right after Lena died, this place was just a shambles. It was a nightmare. But Scott concocted this folkathon. It was 50 straight hours of folk music, which I did sound for about 40 of. And somehow that people would get sponsors, and I don't really remember how it worked, but they did that for a few years. But I wanted to put Scott in there too because he did if you remember the stained glass that used to be back in the corner there, he did that. He was a really gifted stained glass person.
Folkathon was a great chance to get to get your act on stage if you were having trouble getting booked here. Also, like there was a jazz bagpiper. There was.
There's a contradiction in terms somehow.
And I know there's a story about an acoustic upright bass tipping over and falling out the window.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, probably with a bass player attached. They're all down there, like the guys lying on the sidewalk. Oh no, the bass! That's Jim Godet before he developed a bluegrass band. That's at one of the folkathons. I don't have too many of the folkathons, but they were a trip. There's George and Vaughn Ward sitting in the back, one of the back labyrinths here that used to exist. That's where the kitchen is right now. Your coffee came from that place. And yeah. And that's the end of the first folkathon. Some of the people left standing who could still breathe after 50 hours. And some of them are here all night. I don't know how they did it. But a lot of people, a lot of faces we know there. Michael Gerling's in there, and Dick Cavanaugh. They were fun. There was the very last shot I had on the very last roll of film, and I really wanted to get a group portrait, and I had to try to make everyone smile, so I stood up on a chair and I said, say first step, which is the other coffee house.
Eight step.
Huh? Oh, the 8th step, I'm sorry. At least it worked then, so, there was not another chance, but this is when things were changing here. This is Lena would never allow a drum in her day. A bongo was extremely suspicious, and any thought of someone banging on their chair too much, she would get these lightning bolt veins in her brow. And Joe, turn that down. It's a drum, Lena. I would need a BB gun to turn it down. But this was a lively Zydeco band, and if any of you know Queen Ida, this was pretty much Queen Ida's band without Queen Ida, and they played here for some event. I don't remember, but that was a blast. Richard Schindel, I think that's when he was opening for Michael Gerling. They were label mates or something. That was a while back. He still plays here. He's great. Rick Danko. He played here several times, and boy, he was the most universally loved person. Mm-hmm. Lena I was hiking in the Adirondacks, and I missed the first part of a show once. I didn't do sound for him ever, but I came in at the end, towards the end, and watched part of the show, and it was amazing. And I asked Lena what he thought, because he was a rock and roller, and among other things, it's oh, Joe, I feel like I've been made love to. So, hoping that didn't mean he did a 5-minute set or something. But I didn't ask any more questions. But no, people loved him. They just loved him. He was wonderful. I got to see him here a few times. So that's Satan and Adam. There's a documentary on them I saw last year. Satan was a street singer, and Adam was this academic harmonica player, and they toured for a long time. They were fun. That was it. But anyone named Satan, you gotta love it. And that's as close as we've had to getting Bob Dylan here, and. That's Olin Boyle from Addie and Olin. So if you know Addie and Olin, that's all you need to know. This is an Olin thing. There's a Dylan theme night, and he's playing with a Xerox of Dylan on his face. Tony Bird played here quite a few times. South African guy who taught me everything I know about tennis in excruciating length one day and one afternoon. He was a cool guy. I liked him.
I remember him saying that he couldn't eat anything whatsoever from the Onion family, and we had to be very, very careful not to have anything from the Onion family in any of his backstage cooking. And then the next time that he came, he said he could only exclusively eat things from the Onion family.
So you had it all covered one way or the other. That's funny. He was on a raw diet. He had some sort of weird gastric thing.
Yeah.
Oh man, he was a character. I remember going to the parting glass with him one night, and he's like, they're trying to close, and he's there, and he's like, the waitress is there, like bored out of her mind, and it's like, we want to close. And he's like, do you make your own mayonnaise? And she's like, we have Hellman's, you know. It was like a little bit like the Felix Unger of Malawi. Oh, the Angel Band, we had a few memorable shows here with them. They were off stage. I kind of like it when people go down into the audience, and sometimes they're actually in the light, usually not. But Bill Morrissey, he was one of my personal favorites, and one of the few people here I used to hang out with when he came. He always had my name on his tour bus or something. We'd go out for a beer or something. He was just a great performer. We had a show down at the Troy Music Hall. It was for the 30+1 concert, they called it, and they had a bunch of people. And this was one of the only shots I really liked from that. That was Reverend Dan Smith, who sat there playing with George Ward. And, that was a great show. And Ramblin' Jack, he's not called that because he moves around a lot. He tends to be very talkative. And I remember him leaving instructions wake me up when you're about to introduce me. So he fell asleep on the couch that's right back there where the soundboard is, with his hat over his face. He wouldn't allow any pictures of him on stage, but he didn't say anything about whether he was unconscious with a cowboy hat over his face, so I took a few liberties. But yeah, so I think Abigail was the manager at the time. Yeah, 90. No, it was Barb, I think. Yeah, Barb Harris, yeah. Yep. And Barb woke him up, shook him, and went up to introduce him. And he comes up out on stage, he's like scratching his butt, and he's like adjusting his hat, which is on like that. And he's like, and it was like, took him a minute to get talking, but once he starts, it just never ended.
Al McKinney used to call him Stumbling Jack the Village Elliot.
I know, that was somebody called him that, one of the folkies years ago. Jack, yeah, I love to tell that. It's so funny. Oh, that's our beloved Jug Stompers. Yeah. Michael Eck, Greg Hames, who was one of the Michael and Greg are two of the musical kingpins in the whole area. They're just really remarkable. We lost Greg a few years ago. He's the one who started Nippertown, and he was in Blotto, and just a great guy and talented guy. Michael still plays here. He's rock band, punk band, folk band, mandolin player. He's just a great guy. Rick Rourke, just a local guy. He's a cool guy. Has some fun bands. I like the picture of him. I wanted to get him in here. John Gorka is one of my favorites of that era. He's one of the first few people I ever turned a microphone on for when Lena required me to do that. I hope he doesn't really remember that particular night. But he still plays here. He's great. One of my favorites. Miss Tess, someone who's played here a few times. We lost Spider John last year. That's Mr. Bones. They were quite a touring duo for a while. And it was a great show. He's a lively, fun show. Yeah. Great guy. The Story, just a band from the 90s that people loved. It's I love this band so much. Father and son duo, Boku Blue. They don't seem to. The dad just had a bout with cancer, and I follow them on Instagram. And they love this photo. Every time I got their email, their newsletter, this photo's like the bulk of it, So I always like that shot of them. And some things are better left just unexplained, It's just you can only dig yourself into a hole. It's just the way some things are. You just have to accept that. So, extremely funny performer. He was great. Sean Rao, one of the best of the younger generation. He was just here. Mm-hmm. He's such a powerhouse performer. Session Americana, they're just a hoot of a band too. If you ever get a chance to see them, please come, because they're just great players. Fun.
That table is their mic. They've got the table all mic, so they just gather around the table, and it amplifies them.
Yeah, well, they had at that time. You can see a couple little mics under the table. They used to do a few little mics, and with a large diaphragm mic, large diaphragm mic from hell. It was a total bear. But they don't do that anymore. They had separate mics. Yeah, the table they were playing bigger places, and here it was perfect because they were sitting around a table, you know. It was a Shishim and Lotus and Son. They had this little suitcase full of flood lamps they put by their feet. So I had to get that was kind of fun to take photos of. They were a riot.
Yeah.
Those guys were so
Canadian
funny.
band, really fun.
Yeah. They had that horn that they sang through. They had some plumbing worked up, so it was like regular household plumbing that came through an old bell. And we need 3 mics, 2 vocals and 1 for the singing bell. And I'm like, oh man, do we have a preset for singing bell on the soundboard? Funny. And it was Red Molly, that's the original band, when they had a personnel change. So Carol Ann was still there, and she's coming... Fudging on her name.
Yep.
Lori
McAllister.
Lori McAllister. Yeah. I'm Facebook friends with her too. I know her name. But she's coming up soon, I think.
Yeah, she's coming this spring.
Yeah, they're a fun band.
Oh,
and this
God.
guy, oh man, he is one of my favorite things in music ever. And this little trio was just to die for. They were so good.
So good.
Jeremy was masterful. He studied guitar with Dave Van Ronk, and he had a gravelly kind of Tom Waitsy voice. But man, when he came here once, I think in the next slide here, came up to do a solo thing, and he just didn't talk much and just picked out this country blues style, and it was just masterful, as good as anyone we have here. You know, and he's kind of I don't know whatever happened to him, but I miss having those guys up here. They were fun. That's Jimmy Dale Gilmore. He's played here several times. That was the funnest though with this band. That was just a good night. Anais Mitchell, you've never heard of her before, I don't think. She's kind of she had a big hit with her play on Broadway, so she hasn't been back much.
A little thing called Hadestown, yeah.
Little thing called Hadestown. You know, Sarah luckily had some tickets, invited us down to the Proctors thing of the touring production. It was like a full tilt Broadway thing. It was spectacular, and it's so good. She used to sing those songs here just with her duo partner or something. Remarkable. She was one of those people who was just a writer, like Chris Smither, just someone who was a literary thing. I don't know how to describe it. Oh, that's just something that would be a Lena killing moment. I want to get a picture of that. Yeah, drums and horns, and yeah, Lena would be spinning in her grave like a wood lathe, I think. She just did. I always wondered what she would think about this place. I think she would love that it's still going on under her name, and she's revered because she just planned on moving to Europe after a couple of years, and I think she found a certain immortality while she was here. You know, her life was, and I'm sure you feel the same way in a way, because your life is elevated somehow. People know you, they know the good work you do, so it's great. These are a couple of great volunteers. Yeah, we're lucky to have a chain of people who really have just, like 1 million people who have managed to keep this place going against the crazy odds. We were talking backstage earlier. It's just insane how this place was still here after 65 years, considering it didn't make a dime for the first 60 years. I don't know how you do them. I mean, I'm used to living on fumes sometimes, but I have no idea. I mean, it's a lot of people. A lot of people shored this place up, and a lot happened. And Lena made her life. It was just her life. But she had a revered place in the world. So, That's something to be said. I just, like I say, I'm trying to get some volunteer photos in here. These two are two of the coolest people I've ever met.
You had some little light that was for...
It was an Addie and Olin
That's
thing.
what it was. Okay, yeah.
All I have to say is Addie and Olin, and you're supposed to know it's going to be something goofy and fun and wonderful. They would play here with the holiday shows, which ended last year, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But they're a riot. They're such nice folks, too. Oh, that's
Right.
Jean O'Connor, some sketchy-looking guy behind her. No. No, Bob's in the audience. He knows I'm talking about him. But... Yeah. I kind of love that shot of the two of them. They both had, Gene had these great bands. Bob played here with so many great bands for so long, and he's so talented. If I were king of the world, people like Michael Gerling and Bob Warren would be like in the top 40. They're just as good as anybody. Yeah. So Bob played here with a lot of bands, and often bands spilling off the stage on both sides, kind of a sound guy's nightmare, having a keyboard player off of one wall, and, there's like stuff you could barely see going off into the horizon on the other side. They were fun, great shows, but sadly, Bob went heavy metal and was never invited back. No, not really. That was another thing that should go unexplained. And speaking of unexplainable, wonderful things in the universe, if you've never seen Chandler Travis, especially just go see him. It is a riot. He is at the core of it. He's this beautiful singer and songwriter. He's a prolific songwriter, and just writes amazing stuff. He has this 9-piece band with horns and keyboards and drums, and one of the best drummers you'll ever see, Ricky Bates, and these incredible musicians. And it's just funny. They wear these bathrobes and pajamas and hats. It's like Fred Boak on the left there is the valet. He's the background singer, but he's the one who goes around and orchestrates hat changes on cue and hands out little instruments and things. So I've seen him at the Linda. I've seen him in different places, but it was fun to have those bands here. He's just such a good musician. That's his small band, the Trio, which is actually 4 of them. I only have 3 in the photo, though. Fred Boak on this mysterious plastic instrument. And, of course, sometimes you had to deal with an occasional, nightmare after the shows, because you never know what Fred was going to do. I love the look on Chandler's face there. It's like, what is that? How did that get in? And those are a bunch of the Cafe kids. Sophie, John, Isaac. Isaac's mom is here and dad. They're stalwart Cafe people going way back. Louis and I believe that's Fiona, Sarah's daughter.
I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah, they tried the Chandler Travis hats on after the show, so that was just a riot. And it's occurring to me it's been going on for maybe way too long for right now, so we should probably take an intermission.
You sure? Yeah.
Yeah, it's been an hour, and I'm just like waiting for... So I've been waiting for, beer cans to start getting lobbed at me from the back. That's why I have the house lights up a little bit, because I'm I'm glad tomatoes are out of season. Hopefully blueberries are the heaviest things you could throw at me. So I thought I'd show 5 or 6 hours of Caffe Lena photos and take maybe an hour break, and then I'll show slides of the Grand Canyon. And whoever's left, I'll take you out for breakfast. So we'll take a break now, and if any of you are still here when I get back, we'll do some more.
Okay, everybody. As you make your way back to your seats, thank you again. We're ready to get rolling again. So before we get right back into the photos, I was talking to Mike Hokenottle before the show. music journalist and photographer from the Capital Region, Eddie Award-winning music journalist and photographer. And so he was asking, so is Joe going to do sound and photograph the event and be the person on stage? No, so that is Ian Hamelin running sound back there. And both
Ian volunteered for this too. He was just wanted to come and be involved.
Yep.
Good guy.
Stephanie Bardick is taking photos, as is Andrei Pilarchik back that way. Two very well-known, recorded and captured, and it will be here for posterity, which is such a valuable thing.
If you want to get a copy of the Joe Deuel home game, just...
Our wonderful new staff members, Olivia Ames is running the house, and Angie Capilano is running the kitchen. And of course, the volunteers are working hard. So, for those of you who have been coming here for a long time, you know that Lena always said, don't forget to tip your server. And we stopped saying that at some point. It somehow didn't seem quite culturally on anymore, but the volunteers are no longer keeping tips for themselves. They've started a volunteer advised fund, we are calling it, and every quarter they get together and decide how to allocate those donations that you make at the end of the night to different Caffe Lena programs. Right now, they're talking about possibly funding a session of our afternoon senior learning jam, we call it, where retirees can come in and learn to play music together. It's a wonderful social event, wonderful musical event. They're talking about funding some residencies for Caffe Lena on the road, where we take our headline bands and send them out to addiction recovery centers, schools, nursing homes, senior lunch programs, after-school programs. So those are the kinds of things that your tips will fund. It's all up to the volunteers how they want to support the programs. You'll know which programs they decide to get behind. So anything that you leave tonight goes toward that, and we're so grateful to them and to you. So before we get into more pictures, boy, do I look young.
And that woman standing behind you looks even younger.
You know, I'll tell you, so in my desk drawer, I have a sheet of paper that has Joe's one-liners on it. And when he comes out with a really good one, I just say, Joe, that's a keeper. I go into my office and I write it down and I say, I'm going to sell that to Hollywood.
Oh, boy. Good luck with that.
I just wanted to talk a little bit about photography, because this is partly about documenting the life of the cafe and keeping our memories, but it's also about making art, because these are not your average cell phone photos. These are really extraordinary pictures.
They're all AI.
So the early images that we were seeing were film, and now we're seeing digital photos. Can you talk about that shift a little bit?
No. No, I mean, yeah, a lot has happened. That, there's the cafe has evolved, photography has evolved. A lot of, all my old shots are in black and white. And even though I shoot digital now, for the most part, I still like to, a lot of things look better in black and white. I think color is great when the color is part of the photo. But it has to be like a character in the photo. Just having everything a color photo doesn't really work for me either. Because I like just the drama of black and white and the shading. It can be really beautiful. And when the cafe first reopened, we had Sean Dubois, who was the tech director up at the Zankel, came and did this lighting scheme for us that was really a wonderful sculpted light. It was, as I have some photos in here, I just really loved the light in the room at that time. And then with the video stuff, they kind of altered it so it looks more like a white flood lamp now. It doesn't have that character that it used to. But yeah, it was kind of fun to shoot photos. But when the light's bad or whatever, I think black and white looks great. And I still develop film, which, you know, mystifies most of my friends, because, like, why would you do that? I just kind of like that smell of fixer, you know. I don't know. What can I say? It's just I guess it's just in your bones after a while. So yeah, digital's a lot. I'm glad I don't have to spend being up all night making 100 little prints for a publication like I used to. That part I can live without. But when I go out with my field camera or my pinhole camera or something, you know, it's just it's fun to shoot, and there's no pressure. I can just shoot what I want. And it doesn't have to come out great. Occasionally something does, but you never know.
Speaking of coming out great, so you have probably taken hundreds of thousands of photographs, and a few of them are ones that you go back to over and over again, that are really represent the core of your collection. What is it about a photo that makes it attain that status for you?
I don't know, something just has to click in it. Like, I love that picture of John Hartford sitting there. It's just like there's something priceless about the look on his face, just with a cat sitting on his knee. And Lena has a very odd look on her face, too. So I just kind of love that one. I don't know. I have a lot of more general shots in here because I'm trying to cover a lot of turf. But the ones I really love are all like little portraits or something. They're just something about them that I like. So I have a nice grouping of pictures I really love from here, and a lot of okay ones that show the performers that aren't too bad, you know. So
lots of times I feel like the photos of yours that, you know, kind of rise to the top and end up being really the representatives of your collection are ones where I feel like people have gotten caught in a moment, and it could be a moment of deep feeling. It could be focus on their artistry. It could be the emotion of the song. It could be kind of like losing track of what their face is doing because they're really focused on something else. And
that's when you shoot them. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really perfect.
It's hard when you shoot things and people have their mouth open all the time. It just doesn't quite do it. I like it when they think about something after the song, or they're about to do it. Or there's this little, just kind of look through the viewfinder and see what looks good.
And then as a photographer, and there are a couple of other professional photographers in the room.
They're everywhere.
They're everywhere.
It's a vast conspiracy.
I think they like your work, Joe.
Some of them. Yeah.
So with the internet, I'm just giving you an opportunity to say something if you want to say something. With the internet, it's very possible for people to find photographs online, to click on them, slide them onto their desktop, and use them any way they want without any attribution. Do you have anything you'd like to say about that?
Yeah, it happens to me a lot. I can look up Dave Van Ronk on YouTube, and there's going to be like one of my photos and someone's video. And not all my works are copyrighted or anything. It's not like I'm going to go sue someone for something like that. I mean, I download people's pictures all the time. I don't republish them. That's the thing. I'll save a picture that I really like. But I just wouldn't post it or do anything with it other than keep it on my hard drive.
Just a note.
So just a note. So I'll be watching you if you still...
And the last thing that I wanted to ask about is just what's your favorite thing to photograph? So you obviously have had this is an amazing canvas or palette to work with over the decades, but you also take some beautiful landscape photos and just photos of everyday life and still lifes and things like that.
Yeah, I like to do pictures of people more than anything. Friends. I have a lot of portraits of friends, and just not informal portraits, but things I love. I'm just, obviously these are just Caffe Lena photos. I swear I won't get into my Grand Canyon photos or anything. But yeah, there's a lot to take pictures of out there.
Great. All right. Let's do it.
Okay, I never really explained that sitting down is Danny Kalb, who played a few memorable shows here. Great guitarist. Some of you would know him from the Blues Project, the later versions of which have played here. He was quite a character. Yeah, we've got some performers we can't talk about in public. I won't mention some of the worst ones. Maria Muldaur. Yeah, there aren't many people I would... most of the people we have here are fantastic. There's hardly anyone who's tough, but there are a few pills out there. But this picture... I haven't changed... Yeah, I did change it. I'm forgetting how to do this. It's been a break. There was a Dave Van Ronk street renaming ceremony. They named a block of Sheridan Square for Dave Van Ronk, who lived there for a long time. Tom Paxton was the master of ceremonies, and I had one last day off for the summer. It was just before Memorial Day, and I worked pretty much 7 days a week all summer. And I'm going to go to New York, and I want to stop at that thing, and I'm going to go to Coney Island, and it's pretty much what I did. But that was kind of a riot. They tried assembling people into that Great Day in Harlem photo a little bit, but if a bomb had hit that place, I mean, it lost a lot of people. I mean, Susie Rodolo is there, standing next to Peter Yarrow, and Happy Trom's there, David Massengill, Odetta's standing in the crowd, Rosalie's there. It's kind of funny because I showed up there. It was a public event, and Dave Van Ronk's wife came walking up to me and said, "Oh, Joe, what are you doing here?" I'm like, "Oh, that was a public thing. I thought I'd take a few photos." And then I ran into Rosalie, and she came up to me and said, "Joe, what are you doing here?" Just passing through, Rosalie. But it's kind of funny. There are a couple people in this photo who wound up playing here after, like this guy. That's Jeremy Wallace. Yeah. He studied guitar from Dave Van Ronk. And Danny Kalb is standing. You can see like his loud shirt and part of his hair back there, but it's Danny. So it was kind of interesting. I didn't want to get that picture in there because it was kind of fun. David Lindley, he was wonderful. We lost him, was it 2 years ago? Yeah, it was a while ago. But yeah, he was just he was a riot for one thing. It was so funny. Gifted player. If you don't know him, you've heard him. He was the slide player in all those Jackson Browne recordings. He played at SPAC with Jackson quite a few times, I'm sure. This is a favorite photo of mine. I got a chance to sneak up to the stage because I wasn't doing sound for it, and the second show was kind of underattended, so I sat right by the stage, which is where I like to shoot photos from. When I work here, I can shoot in the back, and it's not good. You can get some good photos, but it's not like being out in the audience. I kind of miss that. But that's just Lindley sitting there. He's got that Cheshire Cat look on his face, like I'm telling a fantastic thing and you're loving it. And everyone in the front row has their hands like that. They're just studying him. It's maybe a little hard to see because the TV is so small, but that's really one of my favorite photos from here. I just kind of like the whatever that's got. And this performer played here a few times. Whoops, geez. Jack Grace, that's today Caffe Lena, tomorrow the world. He's funny. Chandler brought him here the first time. Yeah, he was worthy, good guy. Racket River Rounders, John Cribbs, we all know him. He was here. John and Danny were here. Michael we lost last year, unfortunately. His wife Patty and he are old friends. Patty's here tonight. Somehow got her out of the house. That never happens. But that was a terrific band, Racket River Rounders. They split up in '82, but they do these reunion shows here and a couple places, and they're just a riot, and they're so good. There's John. A lot of music packed into that guy. He's amazing. Had to get Dylan Perillo in here. He brought this this orchestra here, the kind of thing no one can keep an orchestra afloat, you know. I mean, Duke Ellington just like trying to feed and travel with a huge band, you know, it doesn't always work. But those guys were terrific. They all could play. Oh no. Is that doing something? Oh, I hit something and it's probably erased the power grid in New York. But, okay. Ed Sanders.
Oh, beautiful.
He's great. You might know him as a member of the Fugs. If you knew the Fugs, you would never, ever forget the Fugs. He's also a poet and Woodstock guy and built those little instruments. And he came here one time, and it was really kind of wonderful to have him. Ellis Paul, he's coming up here, right?
He is coming on Sunday.
Oh, yeah, yikes. I better be done with the slides by then. We've got a whole week, so I think we can get through it. But that's him doing a kid show in the old cafe. He's got this huge sonorous voice and just a good guy. That's Ellis. He actually used to spend time here before his show sometimes. There's one song he plays here that he wrote on our piano just before a show, but this is after a show. And he just sat there. I had to take his photo. He's a good guy.
He asked once if he could just spend the weekend and just have the place during the days. He just felt like he needed to write songs in this room.
You have to understand it. You know, it's really, the room is a character in the play. It
We've
really
had
is.
2 or 3 people do that during my time here, just ask if they could just come and sort of set up camp and have the room to themselves to work.
Oh, there's this patina in this place, even with the renovation. Well, some of it's real grunge, you know, that we'll never get rid of. But no, there's just the music here, and you know, places like SPAC have that too. Every time I go to SPAC, I think about, oh man, I'm watching Yo-Yo Ma right now, but I remember seeing Jim Morrison lying on that stage wearing all leather, you know. Huge history, Pink Floyd. So yeah,
Right here in Saratoga. That's the amazing thing.
This town is crazy for a town its size. It was 20,000 people, I think, when I was younger, and SPAC was here. You'd have days where there were 30,000 people at SPAC and 30,000 at the racetrack. And heaven help you if you forget to drive down the alley that you know the escape route from, and you wind up in the middle of it because Dave Matthews traffic's coming one way, Travers traffic's going the other way. And you can spend, like an hour sitting there. But yeah, it's remarkable. A town this size has so much going on. And that's the Figs. They were my first experience with Lena's lightning bolt veins in her forehead, because they were teenagers, and I talked Lena into letting them try to do an all ages show, because they were like 18. They were a great band when they were 18, and they're still playing, and they're terrific. They still play here once in a while. And that was a long time ago, but in the late 80s when Lena was here, and Lena was going to go out for the day, and the Figs were going to do a set, and they're kind of trying to tone down the drums, and which didn't quite happen. And Lena couldn't quite leave the place alone, so she was like, kept coming up to me in the hallway, and can you turn the drums down? You can't turn drums down from here, so. But that started their many visits here. They're fun.
Her
and this
reaction.
is one of my favorite shots from here. It definitely is. Another Lena killing moment. She would just have a stroke if she were still alive. She wouldn't be after the show like that. But I just kind of love that. They used that for an album photo, but the art director cropped it right there to make it fit into a square for the album. And it came out on a vinyl too. I have a vinyl of it, but I still kind of cringe when I see it, because it's such a, it kind of works when it's a whole photo. Art directors don't always, do the best. Yeah, don't always know best. Oh, that's Jeff Muldar, our coffee salesman, it looks like in this photo. Try Sanka. No, He's one of my favorite few people here. He's like just he's a great voice and great performer, but he's like the most delicate guitar player. He came here with Jim Kweskin a couple times, the two jug band alumni, and they were just a riot, and it was so good. We haven't seen him in a while, but I hope I haven't seen him for the last time. I hope I see him again. He's crazy good. Speaking of crazy, Frank Sullivan is one of the fleetest players. He had this killer band that were just, he still plays here. He was just here last month with his wife, I guess. Yeah. I missed it. I was out sick for a while. But yeah, Frank would always kind of charge into these, they were always happy to see Frank, and it was didn't always end well, but they were happy to see him. Frank was a gifted musician, and has a good place in the music firmament, and he and his family, go way, way back here. And I don't remember when his last show was. I think I've taken off the last couple times. I think I was mysteriously sick the last couple times he played here. I can get COVID with a phone call. I need it Thursday.
But really, anytime there was a great mandolin player, Frank would show up pick with them. And it was such a joy for them to see the legendary Frank Wakefield there.
And some of them, like the Barefoot, that Alaskan band.
Oh, yeah.
They were great. They played, one of those bands played here. They had one super sensitive large diaphragm mic, which they always think really works great for shows. And but Frank went over and was like playing in front of it, and he's like playing his mandolin. He like looks at it, he takes the microphone and grabs it and sticks it in his mandolin. And I immediately just turned it off because it would have killed the first 3 rows of people. So he played without the mic at all that set, and I could see the whole band like. This is a personal favorite. Graham Parker played here, and he just did a solo show once. He was acoustic the first set and electric the second set. He kind of opened for himself. Super nice guy. I saw him with a rumor, and at one point in his life, he'd heard the Figs on a tribute album. And you're like, who the heck are those guys? And he contacted them, and they wound up touring and doing albums together. So I got the chance to see Graham and the Figs. But it's not a great photo, but I wanted to get a picture of Graham in here because I just really love his records. Heather Maloney, she's just this little force of nature we get here. She's really, truly wonderful. Great songwriter and performer.
Playing on Valentine's Day.
Oh, is she?
Yes.
Yeah, I won't get COVID that day. There she is playing with Darling's Side. Yeah, imagine that. Those guys are great. Darling's Side first played here on I used to be the manager, cookie maker, door, bookkeeping person, sound person on Wednesdays for $50. And they played here with a drummer. I had to set him up and make coffee and cookies and do the door and cash the band out, and I'll never forget those days.
Joe and I used to do this every night. We used to move the piano on and off stage by ourselves.
People do, now there's actually money around here now with fundraising, and the place is kind of creaking along. There's a budget. There are people who get paid, and for years it was just Sarah would get a little bit, not nearly enough, and I would volunteer doing the sound, and we were it. Lizzie, who's here tonight, would come in and do the baking, and she got some money, which is also not enough. But the place, you would have to call. There's so little money here. You would have to call the treasurer to see if you could buy a box of rubber bands, and the treasurer would say, "See if you can buy just 5." Sarah knows I'm not joking. It's
really not an exaggeration.
Not an exaggeration. Like a microphone, something like the sound gear, forget it. Something had to be on fire before it could be replaced. So I always kept some sterno back there.
Joe's like a child of the Depression. I mean, we kind of both are. So it's still like, Sarah, I hate to tell you this, but I think we're going to need to buy a new mic cable. And
We'll
I'll be
start
like,
saving up.
yeah, I'll be like, just get it, Joe. And he's like, are you sure?
I'll have the treasurer move some money around in the account. Here's the 20 for the mic kid. Yeah, it was like that. It was like the place. This place is at heart a labor of love. I volunteered here for like 10 years doing what I do now.
Yeah. I think it was one time when your car was in the shop and you were out at Petrified Sea Gardens running that place.
Oh my God.
And you walked here to
I
do
was without a
sound.
car for a while. I used to walk here from there and then
And
take
you-
a taxi home at night.
Yeah, and that's
It's
when I
like
was like,
4.5 miles.
this man has to be paid. And I dragged you kicking and screaming onto the payroll because you want no strings attached.
No, it wasn't that. No, that is not true at all.
Would
That
you like
is
us
so
to continue
not
fighting
true.
right now?
I've already slashed your tires. Oh, man. And there's Darlingside torturing me back when there's single microphone. Always my favorite thing. Yeah. But yeah, they were just a great band. Yeah, the first time on Wednesday they played here, they had drums then.
Yeah, I know. And so it was like this this kind of youth music thing, this student music series. And they were from Northampton at that time. And I remember somebody from Northampton called up here in the afternoon and said, you have no idea. Wait till you hear this band. And we were blown away. And they still give us so much just appreciation for being one of the first places that hired them. And, you know, they've vastly outgrown us, but they still come in and squeeze in a show here anytime they can.
Yeah, we've had them off-site a few times, but they just played here recently.
Yeah, they did just this fall, yeah.
Yeah, so they're always fun. Nice bunch of big guys, too. Oh, the Highwaymen. I had a nice little relationship with them. They played here a couple times. They're that 60s collegiate folk group who recorded Michael Rode the Boat Ashore, and they kind of got back together. They came here the first time, it was really sold out, and the second time they didn't do so well, but they were so nice, and they were pretty good. And they saw this photo on the Caffe website and asked if they could use it for an album cover. They were just coming out with a live album, so I gave them a copy and they used it. It's kind of fun. That the guy on the right, Johan Helton, he was the new kid. He was only like 65 at the time. And this I debated about putting in. Peter Tork, this is like the perks of having been in the Monkees, I guess. And it's like I've never seen so much body language in my entire life. And I'm sorry if you can't unsee this, but there's a therapist by the back door. And that's Honey Boy Edwards. He was one of the last of the 30s blues performers, and not one of the lesser ones, I guess, but a nice place in history. He used to share stages with Robert Johnson. And anyone who's worked with him could write not a book, but maybe a healthy pamphlet, because he was a character.
You should just
Huh?
you should just talk about
Oh, he had this guitar with, I swear, the cheesiest pickup in it I've ever heard. It sounded like a mouth harp. It was like, if you just imagine like a $10 guitar you'd buy at Kmart, and it just had, the pickup's a little electronic thing that makes it come out through the speakers, and it just sounded wretched, and there was nothing you can do with it. You could turn the bass up, and it just sounded like blung, blung. And he had this harmonica player who I swear was just like breathing through the thing. And every few songs, Honey Boy would go over to the harmonica guy and whisper in his ear, and the harmonica player would pull Honey Boy's mic over and like, Joe, Honey Boy would like his guitar to sound full and rich. And then he'd give Honey Boy the mic back, and 3 songs later, Joe. And I was just squirming at that point because there's nothing you could turn to make it sound good. It could have made the second set. I was thinking of just putting a mic on it, but Mark Tolstrup had opened with Dale Haskell, and so Mark said, "Why don't we play with you the second set, and you can plug into my amp." So every 3 songs, I saw the harmonica player whisper in Mark's ear on stage. So Mark took a bullet for me, and I thank him for that. Mark's a gifted local blues guy, a big performer. He's really great. He plays here. But that's Honey Boy. He was 92 in that photo. Yeah. That's the Horseflies. They were here as part of the Flurry. I just wanted to get a picture of them in here because they're just a great band. They've metamorphosed quite a bit over the years, but it was fun to have them here. Hunger Mountain Boys, they were fun. Yeah, Teddy on the right there has come back with the YOs quite a few times. He's great, and great musicians. Kind of miss those guys. I like the photo. Danielle Moralia, she's a wonderful bluesy player with a big voice and a real spark. She's great. Obscure folk singer from the 60s. Janice, she's played here. I've gotten to do sound for her several times now, a few times.
I will just say she found out about our School of Music, and she has been incredibly supportive of it. She just throws a check in the mail every once in a while just to make sure that it stays strong. She loves what's happening here.
Yep, a lot of people play here because they've heard of the place, even though they play in bigger places. So that's a gift this places always have. They'll take a crummier, low-paying gig because they want to play here. And they get here, and they're like, you don't get this at SPAC. People sitting on stage like this almost, especially in the old cafe. The stage was a foot shorter. You could have someone, pass the pepper or something. It's just like they're right there at your table. Oh, that's Woody Mann. He was a great performer. He played. I only saw him here once, but he died a couple years ago. Yeah, that's an infectious smile. You have to love him just looking at that photo. And Poe Girl, that's Allison Russell. Allison Russell. She's become a big deal right now. She's been
2 Grammy Awards this year. Yeah.
And tell her about the band she's played with
Birds of Chicago.
No, our
daughters
are
Native Daughters.
Native Daughters.
Yeah.
With vegging on the names right now. What's her name?
Amethyst Kia.
Amethyst.
And
from the Hot
Rhiannon
Caroline, Rihanna.
Yeah.
I just couldn't remember her name, but she played here to a small house in 2008. That was a fun show.
And Layla McCalla is the other Native daughter. Yeah.
Yeah, she's played here too. So is Amethyst. And we haven't gotten the big fish in that band yet, but we get them on the way up. We get them on the way down. Just be patient. Rhiannon's, she'll be playing here. Oh, that's Thomasina Winslow. We just loved her. She was, we lost her a couple of years ago suddenly, and she was just, her dad, Tom Winslow, played here forever. He had a sweet voice. He was a good performer. Of course, I remember one time he opened for her and played for like an hour, and she couldn't get him off stage. It just kind of totally tanked her show. So, but she's wonderful. She was wonderful. We loved her. Sarah Lee Guthrie, just an obscure name in music. And that was her husband at the time, Johnny Irion. He played here a couple of years ago, and Sarah Lee comes back. She's wonderful. And you never know what's going to happen at Caffe Lena. This is the kids when they were little. I love it when people do things like that. Every once in a while, there's a dog on stage with someone, or a kid in a bassinet or something.
And the dog was on stage with this. Do you remember that dog was biting
dog
people?
That was trying to kill them. This dog wanted to bite everything, and there was they got it around these little kids, and they're like. It was like the Tasmanian devil sort of thing. It was just horrible. I don't know what people love their dogs as they're like ripping their esophagus out, I guess.
But they're Woody Guthrie's great-grandchildren.
Yeah, those are Woody Guthrie. Yeah. Sarah Lee did a show for us at the Zankel a couple of years ago, and the big finale, like everyone, half the audience is on stage. You know how big the Zankel is. It's huge. And she's like, well, this is one of our family songs. And she launches into, this land is your land. I got a big kick out of that. One of our family songs. Now, this guy was just here. Do you know John McEwen from the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band? And this was funny. He came here a few months ago.
In August, yeah.
Yeah, and after the sound check, he was saying, oh man, this has been on my bucket list. I've been wanting to play here. I told my agent, I got to play here once before I die. I really wanted to play here. And I said, well, you were here a few years ago, right? He says, oh, no, I've never been here. And so I had to go over and get my iPad, and I whipped out this photo. I said, well, I took it here in 2010. And he's like, really? Oh, man. And then he looked at me and like, did you do sound for that? And I'm like, so it was kind of funny. But yeah, he's a trip. He's a character. Oh, Jay Unger. He keeps turning up here. It's not a bad thing. And we had, a few years back, we had our friend Mark Woodworth, who works at Skidmore, concocted a few things with Barb Harris. So we did some joint shows up at Skidmore, one of which was Sean Colvin. We had her in one of the little theaters there with a woefully inadequate sound system. I think it was like the dance gym or something. But it was kind of funny. It was good to have her. She was nice. It's a picture backstage. Mark had Mary Lou Lord open for her. And that's Mark with a cat who swallowed the canary look on his face. Michael Eck, I've talked about him before. This is him opening for Peter Case when Peter Case was here. Michael's just, delightful. Mose Allison, he's played here a couple times. I have a bunch of his records. I love listening to Mose, a total character. Funny sometimes too.
It was pretty amazing to have Mose Allison play our piano, and his granddaughter went to Skidmore, which is why we were able to get him.
Yeah, I saw him at the Tin Shop once. I have aerial photos of Mose from the Tin Shop. Patty Larkin, doing something peculiar, but she was doing something funny then. She was a riot. She was doing this Marlene Dietrich something, and it was funny. I kind of like that photo, though. It doesn't look like your average open mic night. Paul Asbell plays here once in a while. He's just a masterful guitarist. He really is. There's the aforementioned Peter Case, who's famous for never drawing audiences, which is amazing because he's so good. He's one of those great performers that people don't come to see. He was in a band called the Plimsolls. Yeah, but I'd love to see him again. And Michael opened. There's Pierre Ben Soussan, he's an Algerian guitarist living in Paris. I've spent more time sound checking him than his shows ever were. I mean, hours. In our old sound system that was
4-hour sound checks.
I came in to get something I left here one morning. Oh, good, you're here. We can begin. Yeah. I'm glad the car wasn't running. That's Michael Eck playing with Frank Jacklitz, his old good friend, and one of the kingpins of the local music thing. Was like no one had a bigger heart than Frank Jacklitz. John Shane played here a bunch. He's a good blues guitarist. That's Sharon Boyd and Sarah unveiling the new bust of Lena. Sharon did that original clay bust in early college, I guess, and it was getting all dinged up, so she took it home and recast it in bronze. And it's got its little permanent niche in the corner there.
The head case.
Yeah, the head case. I've been called worse myself. Carlene Carter played here once. She was just totally delightful. Great voice, great singer. Those are just some cafe volunteers out at the Lip Dub. They did this thing where a car drove all through town and one continuous shot. And so every street had people getting ready to play. It was fascinating. We had this little Caffe Lena group there. Loudon, we love Loudon. He's played here quite a few times. There's the aforementioned Mark Tolstrup. He's a great player. Melanie, who we could write a pamphlet about. She's, we've been through the ringer with Melanie. Unfortunately, we lost her recently, and I'm sad she's gone. I loved her shows, but yeah, they were memorable. She usually showed up here about 20 minutes after the show time. Yeah. I'm not making this up.
No, she really stressed us out, but she was just so, it was amazing to just get a call on the phone and be, hi, this is Melanie. Melody?
No, I saw her at SPAC.
Yeah.
I saw her sound check at SPAC. I happened to be walking by with a friend, and we sat there and watched her do their whole new album for the sound check.
It's like she never got the instructions on what you're supposed to do when you're famous, you know.
Or as a musician,
kept acting
or
like a normal person,
as a
according to her
mom,
own
or a lot of points. She looks. What's that? Oh boy, she played here 3 days once. My fingers did not leave the gain knob because she like Van Ronk was. Just like a hoarse whisper to screaming, just powerful voice.
Yes.
Just obviously having a bad day here. I don't really want to know. That's Nancy Griffith came to the Egg and did a meet and greet down for us before the show. It was fun to get to meet her. She was a big supporter of Caffe Lena. And sorry we lost her a while ago. But Paul, from Peter, Paul, and Mary, whose name is really Noel. He's a wonderful guy to work with. He's just a gentleman and funny as can be. Tom Chapin still plays here. He's just great. That's Natasha at the fridge, and you can't ask. You can't ask. No, don't ask. It's nice sharing a personal joke, private joke with an oversold out room full of people and the internet. There's Sarah, a picture I took of Sarah with Lena's bust. I think that was for the cafe book or something.
It was for something, yeah.
Yeah, something.
I think the book, maybe.
Wholesale Klezmer Band. They played here a bunch. I kind of like the look of them in the room. And they had the lights on. This is what the old cafe was like. It's like having someone sitting in the corner of your kitchen. It's still like that quite a bit, but it was even more so then. Al Galladoro, he was 92 at least. He would introduce these songs like, well, I recorded this with Toscanini and the NBC Orchestra back in 1933. And he was in Paul Whiteman's band, it's just a riot. He was fun. Every year he came, his zipper was that much higher. He was just this little peanut of a guy, and he played here till he was like 95 or so.
He did. And
then he'd go off for a string of one-night shows across Europe after that or something. It was just amazing.
The music kept him, when he would arrive, he would need to just sleep in the car for a while before he took on the stairs. Then he would get to the top of the stairs and he would sit in a chair and he would sleep for a while. And then he would come and we would get him on stage to sound check. And as soon as he thought like you couldn't even talk to him, like he was that far gone. And then he would put that saxophone in his mouth and just
the most beautiful tone. There was just like one big lung inside that small body.
Exactly.
But he was funny. He was nice. He was chatty. Once he was struggling with the show. He was playing beautifully, but you could tell he was a little bit pained. And at the end of the night, he's like, oh, that was a little bit hard because when I left Oneonta, I forgot to bring my teeth. So he played saxophone here all night with no teeth. I don't even know how you do that. Unbelievable. That's him just sitting there. It was wonderful. Addie brought him here, Addie and Olin.
Addie and Olin gave him the idea, but there was this woman, Joanne
Oh,
Schmilowski.
that's the woman who was playing piano. with-
who
yeah.
learned to play piano so that she could accompany
Oh,
him
wow.
as an adult. And she taught herself to play piano enough so that she could accompany him and just drive him around to gigs so he could keep doing what he did.
Yeah, they were.
Amazing woman.
Yeah, she was great. But yeah, Addie was really heavily involved with that. And she was taking lessons from him down in Oneonta, I guess. My fashion consultants. I'm planning it. Next time you see me, I'll be dressed like the guy on the right there. That's Chris Barron, who did an under-attended show here. He's also the lead singer of the Spin Doctors, which is kind of funny. He was great. Very nice guy. Happy. We lost Happy recently. He was just one of the most beloved people. He was just wonderful. And this guy, this was a Don Julin show a few years back, and Billy Strings, he was probably like 8 at the time. He was like, I don't think he was like prepubescent or
Like
something.
16 or 17, I think.
Yeah, he was
16.
young, and that was a show you would not forget. Those guys were a trip. The playing was so good. Tim O'Brien still comes here once in a while. Stray Birds, one band that played here a lot, and just one day they showed up and they were like world class. They were always great, but just suddenly they hit their stride. And then unfortunately at the peak of their powers, they split up. Right,
They did.
Yeah.
Oliver plays with Sierra Farrell now.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
the guy in the middle.
Yep. So that was sad. And this picture isn't mine, obviously. I was -5 at the time. My father was good buddies with Nate Goldsmith, and there's a striking union people out front of Nate's, and Dad, I'm sure, went to take a picture for him, but he didn't want to get too close to him, so he somehow managed to get the entire Caffe Lena building in the photo. They were striking because Nate didn't hire union wait staff and things like that. It's funny. But I found that shot of my dad's negatives a few years back. There's no door on Hattie's, just a big square window. That's Selena sitting in her cafe. I took that a few months before she died. It looked kind of lonely to me, I'm sure she couldn't even see that I was taking her picture. Her eyesight, she had very bad retinitis pigmentosa and a bad heart, and she was just failing. But I'm glad I got that shot of her. Saw it on my contact sheet for months, and I really couldn't print it. But then after she died, a couple of people wanted photos for some press, so I printed it. But I wanted to launch a little bit of I know we're almost out of time. I could literally be here for another hour. But I wanted to do a few pictures of the building because I wanted to lead in with this because the day the building this room was about to get gutted and totally reimagined. And I was thinking of Lena a lot. So I went over and sat at that very same table. We put my camera on a tripod and just took a self-portrait just by the window light there. Because I was really thinking of her and what she would think, But that was the old room. A lot of you remember that. And, it's funny, a lot of people who work here never heard of it. So different. And these are a little bit sad and interesting. I don't think anyone's really seen much of these before. So I had some executive privilege here. That was when we started to gut, clear the sound things out, and then it started getting ripped apart, and look at that place. It's like it had to get renovated, or it would have been a pile of matchsticks in another year. There was some bad things needed replacing, and this needed to happen. And I think it's worked out pretty well. It's still a great place. Like I said, though, it's still pretty bittersweet because I still wish, I wish the Smithsonian had installed the old room in one of their wings, like they do things like that, But sad I can't visit it. And it's some of the board of directors, it's a little bit farther on. Forget her name. She used to come here a lot. And this is unbelievable to me. This is a cell phone panorama, several shots, but this is the place 1 month before it reopened. And that was a month you were glad your name wasn't Bonaccio, because I don't know how they did that. There's no ceiling, there's no floor, there's no sound system, there's no stage, there's no woodworking on the windows. Unbelievable that they pulled that off. I wanted to put a couple pictures. This is where I am right now, looking towards the back there, looking towards Ian. And that's before, from the same angle. You can see the bathrooms and kitchens in the middle there. I remember that's Loudon Wainwright's microphone setup. I don't know why I remember that or care. That's from the other side of the room by the stairs there, before and after. Give you some idea. And that's Lena's little beloved theater. Yeah, it's right where the kitchen is now.
Right
The office is. That's a 2-photo panorama of looking the other way. It was a sweet little spot. It was just the old awning. Sarah found these little guitar lamps that were kind of quickly vandalized, unfortunately. You know how things go, but I kind of liked the look of that. That was opening night. Suitcase Junket was our first performer. Like there was like half a sound system installed here
I
then.
know.
And
We were tuning the sound system literally like an hour before the grand audience of donors shows up for the first night.
To be all killed by feedback. And Michael Gerling, one of our, like I say, if I were king of the world, a lot of people would be famous. Michael, I'd had to get a couple of Michael in here. And there's Michael through someone's cell phone. That's kind of what stage shows looked like to me these days. It's Christine Lavin and her sensitive new age guys. If you don't know her, that's one of our performers, Petey Ronstadt, over on the right. He comes here with Don Armstrong. He happened to be in town. Tracy Bonham, a favorite. I just love their music. That band it's exquisite little trio. It's so good. That was a kid's show, by the way. She doesn't normally dress. That's not the normal. Jeff Daniels, the actor, did a show here once, and he was a riot. And he was so good. He had his kids overwhelming the soundboard and the light board. There were sounds and colors on the stage you would never, ever hear again. Crazy, but it was fun.
It was.
It was a fun show. Larry Carlton, just think Steely Dan here, and think Asia, is one of the... He's just kind of retiring now, but he's at the peak of his powers. He's so good. And someone who's not at the peak of her powers, I don't think people know her that well, but she's an absolute virtuoso. This woman did a show here, and it just, if you like super imaginative, exciting, fun, if you don't like that stuff, stay away, because she was just amazing. I hope she comes back. She was Gigi, Jiji. I know in type it looks like... That's the way she spells it. So, look for her. I want to do a few for the gospel brunch that Garland Nelson, Joel Moss, who's doing the streaming, whipped this up and invited Garland to be the main performer. They just started these again, so we're going to be doing it once a month. And at first, Hattie's was doing the food in the back there. That's it was the conga line of people waiting for fried chicken. It's kind of a riot. There's Joel Moss standing in the background with Hattie together for the first time in a photo, I believe. So, collector's item. I'll be selling prints out back. Oh, that's Annie and the Hedonists. This is just a few weeks ago when they were here. They were a local band that's just, you don't want to miss them. Taylor Ashton, this is when I mentioned the lights were so good, the stage lights were so good, and you can tell just by looking. It was fun for photography. I really enjoyed the color. That's just a great band. The guy's a great singer, a great songwriter, a wonderful band. Gil Gutierrez, who played here, came here with Doc Severinsen. That was 3 days that was a riot. Steel Wheels, a lot of you know them. They play here still. Look at the light from the old days, though. I love that. Adam Ezra is wonderful, one of the best young new people. That's just a couple months ago. Anna Egi, is that how you pronounce it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a weird reflection. I went over and sat there. The piano happened to be there, so half of that photo is the reflection just in the black gloss of the piano. Kind of like it, though. She's wonderful. Marcia Ball, a lot of you know her. I'm going to try to flip through things so that the wait staff doesn't, they'll be lurking for me up by the door. You kept us here. She's coming back. She's wonderful. It's nice to see a young person like that, just being a wonderful guitarist and into the tradition. Eric Anderson still plays here once in a while. It's a band. All those people in the band have been here before. That's Scarlett Rivera on the left there playing, probably know her from the Bob Dylan recordings and Rolling Thunder. Eric's a good guy. He's one of those people with kind of an expansive mind. He's just... he's got his hands in everything. He's interesting. Jake Blunt, he plays here. He's steeped in the tradition. He's someone you'd want to check out too. He's great. Chico Freeman. I wanted to start with this. I'd have to get a few of these jazz photos in before I end. Joel Moss and Chuck Lamb concocted this jazz series where the Chuck Lamb Trio plays every month. I think it's like the second Tuesday. Mm-hmm. You think I'd know by now after so many years. I just go where my iPhone tells me to go. He had Chico Freeman, who's back when I had a jazz radio show. I used to play Chico all the time. It was a thrill to have him there. But it's been a remarkable series. Unless you hate jazz, then definitely stay away. But Chuck's a gifted pianist, and these bands are just exciting and fun. And I swear everyone seems better than the one before. That's Chuck Lamb with Ralph LaLama. I just kind of like that shot of the two of them. Yeah, it's a shot I like. This is interesting. Chuck Lamb consorted here with Paul Winter for 2 shows, and there wasn't nearly enough Chuck in it. Paul played with a lot of tracks I had to play from the computer in the corner, and I had to keep playing those tracks, and some were in the dark. I had to turn the lights off. I had to dim them. I was like trying to follow the script, and I don't believe I got through 2 days of it without screwing anything up, because that's not like me at all. But I wanted to mention the Chuck Lamb series because it's fantastic. It's the Quaby sisters. They're wonderful. They're just kind of semi-retired right now. But, that guy, I never heard of him before. Obscure English musician who just wandered in for open mic night. No, those were like $130 tickets to get him here, and we sold out 3 nights. Yeah, he left with more money than I probably make in a year of 6-day weeks that I work here. Jeffrey Foucault, I like that shot of him. That was such a good show. And it's the beloved Oshima brothers. They're like a 2-man darling side. Their harmonies are so good, and they're such good-spirited, talented people. So look for them. It's a Haitian band who played here, Chukbois. There's Peter Yarrow playing here, and that's kind of not long after the renovation. They had this old drapes there. It's Peter with a bunch of people on stage. Sharon Bolton's there. Everyone loves it except the guy on the right who just thinks it stinks. There's one in every crowd. Peter was going to play here a few weeks ago, even though he had like 1 foot in hospice already, but he was like saying, I think I've got 1 more show left in me, and he wanted it to come here, but he didn't make it. He's in hospice now, but his shows were fun. It was nice having him here. And we did this little series of late night videos, and that was one of my favorite, Heather Maloney. She had a string section with her on that tour, so the video people put them out in the room and left the string section on stage. And she's just a force of nature. She's so good. But that was fun. They clear all the tables out. They did these after the show, so we were here till like way late, but it was a riot. Josh Ritter did a late night video after he almost played for us. It was like the first week of the pandemic. He had a full house at the church. Chuck was involved, Mr. Rockman, and they had to get canceled, but he still came here and did the the video thing.
This was March 12th, 2020. And it was the day that Cuomo said you can't have gatherings over 500, and we had sold out the church at 500. You can't have gatherings over 500. And Josh got up on stage during the sound check and said, you know what, we can't do this. This is not the right thing to do, and canceled.
Yeah.
And then the next night, you could only have half capacity, no matter how big the room was.
Yeah.
And we had Paul White. Do I have that right? John Paul White.
Oh, John Paul White.
John
yeah.
Paul White here that night. And so
It's amazing, by the way.
we got in touch with the audience, and half the people gave up their tickets so that we could do the show.
Wow.
And it was the most emotional show, because we were, the next day everything was going to shut down, and we had no idea how long that was going to go on for. We thought we might have a month off.
Oh, yeah, we did
Yeah.
have a month off, and a month off, and a month off.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sarah got us through that remarkably. But he came into the video, super nice guy. He came back and did a couple shows or a show for us. He was great show. That guy you might have heard of. He's one of the first people I ever turned a microphone on for. He used to come with his dad, Bucky. Yeah, John would come running up the stairs with an amplifier, his giant amplifier. They'd both plug into it. I'd put a mic in front of John. They'd play a show. John would run down with the amplifier. They'd drive back to New Jersey and drive up the next day and do another show. Bucky never wanted to stay overnight. John doesn't know why. He still plays here once in a while. But, it's our beloved Brian Melick. I love that shot. That's early in the pandemic. He couldn't be on stage with Kevin McCrell, so he was on the floor over there. So I got a shot I liked of him. Drummers are fun to shoot too, because they're always surrounded by multicolored flying saucers. It's very surreal. Brian. He's a gifted person, gifted percussionist. John Sebastian. Another obscure performer from the 60s, Judy. She was a riot. She did 4 shows here.
Yeah. We were like, we'll do 2 shows. They sold out in minutes. They were like, Judy, can you do one more? Oh, okay. Sold out like that. And then, all right, just one more. Promise not to ask for any more. And that one sold out like that. And it was an amazing experience. And so in Lena's day, she used to have people come for a whole weekend. To have somebody with us for 4 days just completely changes the relationship that you can develop with that person. I mean, you're cooking for them, you're eating together, it's just a whole different thing.
Yeah, it was fun. And she still sounded like Judy Collins, which is not amazing. A bad thing. Yeah, she's great. I'm running out of time, so I'm gonna just fly through a few things in a couple of minutes, and Kinky. We lost Kinky Friedman recently. He was here a couple times. Yeah. Doc Severinsen, he was 92 there. What a great show that was. They were just a riot. That band was exquisite. The San Miguel 5, incredible. Ladysmith Black Mambazo, something we would never have in the old cafe.
And they're coming back in April.
They're coming in April. Once again, they want to rent us the microphones they own. They want that fact to be kept a secret. Are you listening, Internet? Joan Soriano, I just kind of like that photo of him. Molly Tuttle, a lot of you know her. Not a great photo, but I want to get a picture of her here. It's Campbell Brothers.
Love that show.
They were a blast. Those guys. That was just a trip.
Sacred Steel.
Oh yeah. I had to put Judy Weil in here. I think a lot of you know Judy, local yoga teacher, and look at what she did to the place there. Amazing. She decorated it with Sharon Bolton there helped her out, and Judy would spend years writing these whole productions, and she would just have so many details and things, and she would come out and do them. There were music and theater, and I wanted to get a picture of her in here because you can see she shows what the possibilities of the place are, really. Vanessa Collier, she plays here still. That's a terrific band. If you like a good time, come to see that. And Che Appalachia, they didn't survive the pandemic, but that was a wonderful show. Oops. Carlo Eanzo, gifted man player. Andy McKee, that's our beloved Roy Bookbind. And Justin Towns Earl played here 2 shows one day. He was so nice. I liked him so much, and I was so sad when he died. And his dad, we got to get his dad here someday.
I'm working on it,
I
Joe.
know, she's working on it. We've had his Aunt Stacy used to play here, and Steve would be fun to have here, but he was so good. Big Sandy, it's Fly Right Boys. This is another Lena killing moment. You know, this is no longer your grandmother's Caffe Lena. That was a trip. And this band I love, Alash Ensemble. Tubin singers, they do the throat thing. They're so good, though. They're steeped in tradition and beyond. We had Arlo up at Skidmore. That's the Scroon River Band playing down in the stairwell. They're like a long time, frequent flyers here. Garnet Rogers. A couple months ago, Glenn David Andrews and that's his brother-in-law, and they're both the trombone players. They took the entire audience out for a walk around the block. The rest of the band stayed on stage playing, and then the trombonist eventually came back with the audience, and the song was still going on, and they just finished the song. I think a couple people left without paying too. But Duke Robillard from Roomful of Blues, he plays here. Paula Cole, Pete Donnelly from the Figs, like the musical force. He's a wonderful guy. Mamselle. Peter Mulvey's one of the younger people who are just gifted people, you know, is the future of this place. Rachel Price and Villeray. Yeah, Robbie Fulks. I had to get Rockman in here because he's sitting right there. My biggest regret is that I don't have a trivia contest right now, so I can't get my revenge. But if you haven't seen a Rockman, come. It's one of the funnest things, one of the funnest series we have here. I just look forward to it every month. Cat Wright, just remarkable. Sawyer, you probably heard of him. Todd Schaefer from Railroad Earth. Oh, Hal Ketchum. It's a long story, but the beautiful Yamaha we have here, that he did a benefit concert so we could have that. And what he didn't make with the concert, he chipped in the difference.
Yeah.
I've
Bought
told
us
that.
our piano.
Yeah, it's our piano. Joe Louis Walker, he's a riot. Ranky Tanky. That's Sonny Speed, who's brought a lot of blues here. Again, with some reflection in the piano. Bella Fleck, you've never heard of him. Oh, Galen Lee, she was wonderful. She came here and did a show. She was just a beautiful performer. Fred Hirsch, the only time we're likely to see a baby grand on stage here, because there's not even room for like a flower on stage. Gulfstrom, great band. View Farcatore, Ali Farcatore's son. It was a great show. It's like the Grady Girls doing a nice St. Patrick's Day show. I kind of love that, the dancers. Jake Shimabukuro is a fun, great show. Josh White Jr. I think I'll end on this because it's another Addie and Olin thing. You just, all you have to say is it's an Addie and Olin thing. And so I figure we'll take an hour break, and then I'll start into the 5 hours of landscape photos or something. So thanks so much. This is, I'm shocked everyone came out and sold out in no time. I was expecting like maybe my girlfriend Laura and maybe a couple winos off the street, but oh God, I'm embarrassed. Oh, you guys are too kind. I can't pay all of you for clapping like that. Encore, yeah, another 3 hours.